Okay. Welcome everyone who is joining us tonight. Just as a reminder, this is our school year abroad virtual information session. Tonight we will be focusing on the year-long program. So I know some of you have signed up, have indicated that you may be interested in the summer program. And that's great. We have a page on our website dedicated to that, but all of these students have participated in our year-long or semester program. So that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. But I do encourage you, if summer is your main interest, to check out our website or email me after this and we can chat about those opportunities. I am Maggie Bland. I work in admissions at School Year Abroad. I'm really excited that all of you are joining tonight. Thank you so much for coming and for registering. We have your pre-submitted questions for those of you who submitted those, so we will get to those at the end. And just a little bit of an overview tonight. We have we'll do quick introductions, and then I will give a short admissions presentation about our semester and year-long programs for high school students. And then we will go into our panel with our amazing alumni who are here tonight. And we will talk about classes and travel and host families and everything in between. And then we will get to your pre-submitted questions. So feel free to use the comment feature as well as we go along. And that will be the time towards the end of the session that we will get to those. But again, thank you. My name is Maggie, and we will go ahead and get started. So welcome again, everyone, if you're just joining us. We have 5 amazing School Year Abroad alumni with us tonight. So we are going to kick it off with some introductions. So Zibby, if we could start with you, that'd be great.
Okay, hello. Bonjour, je m'appelle Zibby et je viens du Colorado. Et maintenant, je suis à la Thatcher School au Californie. In English, I'm Zibby. I'm from Colorado, but I go to the Thatcher School in California. I'm currently a senior, and I studied in France.
Thank you, Zibby. And over to you, Jack.
Ciao ragazzi, mi chiamo Jack, sono di New York, ho studiato con SYA a Viterbo in Italia. Sono stato a junior year in New York, LaFell School. Hi, my name is Jack. I studied in Viterbo, Italy this year with SYA. I live in New York and I go to the LaFell School and I'm currently a junior.
Great, thank you, Jack. All right, Lila.
Hola, soy Laila. Estudié el año pasado en Zaragoza, España. De momento estoy en el primero de bachillerato y soy de Connecticut, entonces asisto a Choate Rosemary Hall. In English, I'm Lila. I'm a junior at Choate Rosemary Hall. I went to SYA Spain last year.
Thank you, Lila. Mitchell?
Hola, me llamo Michelle, soy de San Francisco. Yo también estudiaba en España con Laila y yo voy al colegio que se llama Headroyce. Y estoy en el segundo de bachillerato. In English, hi, my name's Mitchell. I'm a senior. I went to SYA Spain for my junior year, and I currently go to the Headroyce School.
Thank you, Mitchell. And then Hannah.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Anna. Je suis passé un semestre à Rennes, France. Je viens de Connecticut et maintenant j'étudie à Hopkins School. In English, hi, my name's Hannah. I spent the fall semester in Rennes, France last year. And right now I'm a senior at Hopkins in Connecticut.
Awesome. Thank you all, our fantastic SYA alumni. I'm going to have all of you exit the stage while I transition to our admissions presentation. And then we will get going with our alumni Q&A. So we will bring our alumni back very shortly. So let me get my screen set up for this. Okay. Great. So once again, thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate your time. And so we're going to get going with a short admissions presentation about our year-long and semester programs, and then we'll bring our alumni back. So picture yourself here, traveling throughout your host country, learning the language through conversations with locals, and living with your own host family. So if this is exciting to you and you can picture this, it's time to apply to school year abroad. With campuses in France, Italy, and Spain, SYA is here to turn your learning journey into one that is focused on hands-on and real-world experiences at one of our 3 European campuses. So I will show a quick video and then we will continue on.
Every experience you have here will be an adventure. The risks, the rewards, they're all included.
This entire year has just been about things being based on where we are or where we are going with the school next. You learn about something and then you get to experience it. That makes classes a lot more engaging, knowing that we're going to see the things that we're studying.
You really feel the gravity of the things that you learn out of your textbook rather than just hearing about them and memorizing some flashcards. I think it's the difference between memorization and understanding.
It's not just schoolwork, it's actual practical experience that you can't really get anywhere else.
What SYA does best is make students comfortable being uncomfortable. You really start to embrace the idea of being uncomfortable.
I don't think any other program can really give you this experience. They're willing to throw their students into these situations, trust that we'll be okay. And in the end, we are okay. And I think that we take so much away from it just because SYA is willing to give us that trust and freedom.
So the capstone project is the culminating end of year project for all SYA students. It's very much grounded in the fact that we are in Spain, and the goal of the project is to take best advantage of the resources that are around us.
I think that I've been able to get through the surface level of my experience here, not only with the land, but with the people. And I think that the longer that you're here, the deeper beneath the surface you can really get.
My host family, they are the cutest people I have ever met. I can leave Italy saying I'm part Italian now. I am part of their family and they love me and I love them. The relationships that I've created with them, that's something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
My friends have been a big part of this experience because I've been able to find a really good group of people who are just as adventurous as I am. I'm very glad I did SYA. It has opened my horizons to travel and being more independent.
I know it can be sort of scary thinking, 9 months in a foreign country. It flies by so fast and it's so fun. It's an experience that I feel so fortunate to have been involved in. It's not something that a lot of people get to do, so if you have the opportunity, please do it.
For anyone who's on the fence about going to SYA or even applying, the fact that you're even thinking about it probably means that you're somebody who should be here.
All right, so just to recap a little bit of what you heard in the video, all of our SYA students live with their own personally matched host family as they immerse themselves in the local culture and feel truly at home while living abroad. SYA students are part of a small student body composed of sophomores, juniors, and seniors from high schools all across the United States. So a question that we get a lot is, where do I actually go to school? And the answer is in these SYA campus buildings. So you will be going to school with about 50 to 60 students in these buildings designated for SYA. They're beautiful, they're centrally located, and our students really enjoy being able to check in with each other during the day and then head out into the community on field work and then after school. We do have a 2-year or level 2 language requirement in France and Spain. And then we do require 2 years of a different language to apply to SYA Italy, but it does not need to be Italian. So I know this may sound intimidating to some students who are watching, and I just want to assure you that a wide variety of language learners excel at SYA due to our fully immersive experience and programming. So as part of our field work, we get outside of the classroom about once a week, and that can be interviewing locals for political science, presenting research, or going to museums for art history. And it really is designated to get our students to connect with their the academics that they're studying in class and really see it come to life. We also see that our students really grow in their independence with us at SYA, and that is partially through our school organized trips. So you can see here some of the places that our students go in France in small groups with SYA, in Italy. Again, we're really trying to get them to explore their host country and use their language skills. And then in Spain. And some of these you may recognize, some you may not. And again, really intentional to get our students bonding with each other and also getting involved with the communities in our host countries. So we do have a final capstone project, which you also heard about in the video. And that's really an opportunity for our students to continue to take ownership of their learning as they dive into a subject that's really important to them. So that can be researching fashion and designing an outfit in Italy, investigating local farming practices in France, or studying environmental sustainability in Spain. But you really do have a lot of freedom to choose a topic that you're interested in and really do some local interviews and local research and present those findings to your classmates. Each of our students participates in at least 2 activities. So that can be a cooking class, continuing to play a sport, or anything in between, playing in an orchestra or singing in a choir. And most of these activities are done locally. And all of our school campuses also have a local exchange with a high school in the area so that students can make those local connections as well. Our teachers are dedicated local and American faculty members. So we have 2 teachers per campus, basically, from the United States, and those are math and English teachers because those subjects are taught in English. And then the rest of our teachers are our local teachers who will teach our language classes and our extracurriculars. Colleges love SYA. So these are the colleges and universities most frequently attended by SYA graduates. And the really important part about this is that students find their voices overseas. So they're really demonstrating the grit and ambition it takes to live in a new country and learn a new language, which is really appealing to college admissions folks. So I encourage you to check out our website on that as well if you have more questions about our college matriculation. So we have awesome financial aid at School Year Abroad. We have over $2 million in financial aid and over 10 scholarships, which about half of our families receive. So we encourage anyone who's interested to apply because for a small program, that makes a really big difference. So we really think that this is a risk worth taking and that it's time to maybe mix up your high school routine and do something different as you immerse yourself in a new culture and a new language at one of our 3 amazing campuses. So in conclusion, we have Rennes, France, Viterbo, Italy, and Saragossa, Spain. So I will stop sharing my screen and then we can transition back to our panel of alumni. Welcome back. And we are just going to jump right into our Q&A. So our first question is about your favorite class. So Jack, if you could tell us about your favorite class in Italy, please.
Okay, honestly, the more I started thinking about it, it becomes even harder to choose because I really loved like almost all of the classes that I took while I was in Italy, which I can't say about at home. But I thought the Global Perspectives class, which I took in Italy, was a really cool one. It's probably one of the most interactive classes that I've ever taken. We learned about like lots of different parts of history, but very modern history. So like 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, about stuff that's going on in Italy, and also how things going on in Europe kind of affect what's going on in Italy, even like North Africa too. And our teacher, Professor Gatti, would bring in a lot of like local speakers to come and talk to us about what was going on, which was just a really cool way of being like totally immersed in what we were learning about. Like he brought in a local lawyer one time to teach us about the Italian law system. And like this woman who worked with immigrants who were coming from North Africa to Viterbo, and she came to talk about that whole situation and how they dealt with that with us. And it was a really cool class to be able to take.
That's great. And I think it echoes a lot of what I hear from our SYA alumni, that it's one thing to study things in textbooks, and then it's another thing to actually see them in real life and experience them for yourself. And I think your teachers also do a fantastic job of bringing in local experts and also encouraging you to use your language skills to connect with them and go into the community and do interviews and everything like that. So I think that's a great example. So moving to our activities, Lila, could you tell us about one of the activities you participated in, please?
Yeah, so in Zaragoza, I joined the only ultimate frisbee team in the entire city. I thought it was really interesting because, first of all, it gave me an opportunity to play on a team that was much better than one I could play on in the United States, which was a positive. And then I also really enjoyed, like, the people were incredibly nice. They're some of the nicest people that I've ever met. And I still keep in contact with them today. And I think it's really nice to have that connection to the city. And as well, while I was there, I had the chance to just explore a separate part of the city that I wouldn't have necessarily gone to. normally I would stay at home or go to school and explore around El Centro, but when I got to go to the university, I thought that was a really nice experience.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that at SYA Spain you could play Frisbee. And I think it's a great testament to the club sports and getting involved in local sports. I think some students assume that they won't be able to play at a really high level. And sometimes you can play at a higher level than you're used to in the US. So every one of our campuses has a activities coordinator who can help place students in the right level and the right activities, get them connected to the right organizations. So there's a lot of support there as well. So I'm so glad you found Frisbee. Mitchell, how about you? What activity would you like to talk about?
So for me, I actually went to the local conservatory and played chamber music there, and I also played in the local orchestra too. And I remember orchestra is one of my most fondest memories. The first day there, it was kind of crazy, but I remember I built a community with them throughout the year, and then just had a really good time playing music. And at the end, I think I went to Barcelona with them on a little trip with the orchestra, so it was really fun.
It's great. What a great way to connect with local friends as well. Hannah, how about you? What activity did you participate in?
So I played on a club soccer team in Rennes, which was a really interesting experience because soccer in France is just like crazy, and it was really fun. I think there was one or two other girls from SYA who I played with, and then we got to know the French girls, which was one of the highlights of my entire experience in France. On my birthday, they sang to me in like 3 different languages, and it was like so exciting for them to like have us on the team, and we like just spoke in like Franglish all the time, and it was so fun. And I still talk to them today. Like I think one of the girls just Snapchatted me like a 20-second audio message, so now I have to like go brush off my French skills and go respond to her. That's really fun.
That's awesome and a great way to keep in touch with your friends and also keep up your language skills. So that's awesome. All right, transitioning to favorite foods. Zibby, what was your favorite food at SYA France?
I think I'd have to go with the galettes and the crepe, however you feel at the moment. But the galette is like a savory version of the crepe, and it's so simple. And they had it, like my husband only ate that like once a week, and you can put anything on it, but we would add cheese and ham, and it's really good and comforting. And then also I can't go through this without mentioning, of course, the bread, because it's France. But we were spoiled. We were spoiled every meal, and I do miss it.
Oh my gosh, I'm hungry. Okay. Jack, we have to turn to our SYA Italy rep for the favorite food question as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Gotta be honest, but Italy, I think we got the best food. I really, everyone else is shaking their head, but I really, oh my God, I miss the food so much. For sweet, I think that I ravioli con la ricotta, okay, not ravioli like you think of it, like the pasta. They're basically these, it's like dough filled with this like ricotta with this pink alcohol that they mix in there, and then they fry it. And it's traditional for Natale or Christmas. And they had it a lot right around when I arrived in January, but I was able to find it throughout the whole time that I was there. It was really one of my favorite things, which I haven't been able to find here yet. And for something savory, I cannelloni, which are basically, I don't even really know how to explain them in English, but they're kind of like, if you imagined lasagna, but like rolled into these like tubes and just like a lot more flavorful. And it was either made with ragu inside or with like spinach and ricotta. And they were just honestly one of my favorite things. And my host mom would make them, and she knew they were my favorite. So she would either like go and buy them or make them. And it always made me so happy. They were great.
Oh, that's great. And I love the host family making an appearance. All of our students have host family dinner every single night. So the fact that you liked your host family cooking is a great thing. I think most of our students feel that way. So thank you for sharing about that. Mitchell, I'm going to turn to you to speak a little bit about one of your favorite trips that you took while at SYA.
So one of my favorite trips was the Andalusia trip. We went to the south of Spain, and there I remember the most fun thing we did was to meet up with a group of Spanish teenagers in, I think it was Arcos de la Frontera. We were able to just spend a day looking around their town, and just like interacting with them throughout that entire day. And it was really fun being able to make new connections, meeting new people. And also, it was also on the Lucian Spanish, so it was a little bit difficult to understand the accent at first, but it was really fun being able to just connect with a different group of peers.
That's so great. And I often hear from students that that's a integral bonding time with classmates, just to be separated into smaller groups and go to a new part of the country. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful part of Spain. So that's great that you got that group. All right, Jack, how about you? What was one of your favorite trips?
Oh, it's so hard. Okay, so I took a trip with some of my friends, an independent travel trip we went to Genova into Milan. I think this is just an interesting one because Genova is, I think, like a very overlooked city in terms of like traveling. Like, I don't think you've probably heard of many people that said like, oh, I just took a vacation to Genova, but I cannot stop telling people about how much I love it and how much I think people should go there. It's the birthplace of pesto and focaccia, which are both amazing there. It's right on the water. It's this like 3-tiered city. If you go, you'll see what I mean. And it's just really cool. And when I was there with my friends, we got to go around everywhere. We met local kids who were living there and got to know them. And then also Milan is just an awesome city that you should definitely see and is a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you for speaking about that, Jack. And just for those watching, for independent travel, our students have to earn that privilege. So they have to be with us for a few months, be in good academic standing, and demonstrate proficiency in the language before they can submit itineraries for the independent travel. And then once they are at that stage, they can, with a few friends from SYA, submit those itineraries and get it approved from our resident directors, then also folks at home, just so that everyone's on the same page about where they're going to be. They have different check-in points and have to be able to be reached at all times during their travels. So it's a very comprehensive process, but really exciting for our students to demonstrate that independence and practice those itinerary building skills. So that's great. And then let's see, Lila, what was one of your favorite trips?
So my host family actually took me on a trip with them during Semana Santa, which is like the spring break thing of Spain. And so I got to go to their pueblo, which is like their little town where all their family is from. And you know, when I was there, I had a moment where I was like, how on earth did I end up here in somewhere that I couldn't even place on a map in Spain because I didn't have Wi-Fi? And I just thought it was so interesting. And it was a really great experience. They all had like a paella competition within the town. And I got to meet a couple of my host brother and my host sister's friends. Yeah.
It's such a great example. I love that all three were quite different. And the host family travel is also a very important part of school year abroad. So our host families, which is the topic we'll get into next, are all selected very carefully, full background checks. And our students also put a list of their preferences with living with a host family. And our host families really do take our students in as one of their own. Everything the host family does, the student does as well. So if that's a trip, if that's a birthday in the family or a reunion, the student goes too. So it's a really comprehensive process and a really important part to who we are at SYA. So speaking of host families, Zibby, can you talk a little bit about your host family and maybe a memory you have with them?
I would love to. I love this question because I think my host family was the most important part of my time abroad. They were absolutely amazing, and I feel so incredibly lucky to have met them and got to spend time with them. But I can definitely agree with what you were saying. Like, they take you in as one of your own. And so you go to all the family reunions, you go to all the family dinners and lunches. And in France, it's very common to have lunch with your family and extended family on Sunday afternoons. So those often last a few hours, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And then I think my favorite memory was we'd gotten so close by the time my birthday was in January that my host mom and my host brother actually wrote like a cover to a song, one of my favorite songs about me, and then sang it to me on my birthday, which is just like, I was like, what did I even do to deserve such a kind family? And I think many students feel that way. It's just such an incredible bond to have with a family who you never would have come in contact with otherwise.
Absolutely. Wow, that is such a sweet story. That's a tough one to top, but that's a beautiful moment. Thank you for sharing that with us, Zibby. Hannah, what about you? What was your host family like?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top the 3-minute long custom song, but I loved my host family. So I had just the general makeup of mine is I had a host mom and a host dad, and then I had a host sister who is my age. And then we did all like the typical things. Like my host dad, he was really into soccer, so we watched the World Cup together, and it was basically like the Super Bowl every time there was a World Cup game on, and that was really cool. My host mom like taught me how to make like macarons and a bunch of like her family recipes, which I thought was really cool. And it was kind of like the general, like, oh, they're like teaching you the culture. But I would say my favorite memory with them was like really simple, but it was just really, really sweet of them. And it was kind of that example of them like showing me like it's not even like them being like my French host parents. Like they literally just like thought of me as like their own daughter. In a sense, it's like one time at dinner, I was just randomly talking about how I really like grapes, right? And they were like, "Oh, like we have grapes here, like why don't you eat them?" And I was like, "Oh, well, like it's kind of weird, like I don't really like the ones with seeds in them because like whatever." And I was just talking about it. Like it was just like this random conversation. And then like a few days later, I came home from school. My host, I was like, "Oh, like Hannah, I have a present for you." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he like literally went out of his way and he like went out to find it. And it was like these seedless grapes. And it was just like the sweetest thing ever. I was like, I literally think I almost started crying in the kitchen. I was like, that's so sweet. Because it's like, it wasn't like all these extravagant things like, oh, like you're teaching me the culture. It was just like he thought of me and he was like, I'm going to do this thing for Hannah. And it was just really, really nice.
Wow. Another great story. Wow. That it just says so much. Both those stories, I think, say so much about how seriously our host families take this process and how much they are thinking of you. And they do want you to feel so comfortable while you're taking this big risk and learning a new language and living in a new home. The things that they can do to make you feel special and a part of the family really go a long way. So thank you both for sharing that. So in the video, we mentioned our field work activities. So these are times during the week where our students kind of have a field trip day led by their SYA teachers. So let's see, Jack, could you tell us a little bit about field work that you remember?
Yeah, of course. Okay, first of all, just after hearing those, I have to do a shout out to my host family too, because I loved them so much. They were such an integral part of my experience and just made everything so smooth and comfortable. And they would do things like Hannah was saying, like my host mom would randomly show up one day with something I had mentioned a couple days earlier that I liked and just be like, oh, I got these for you. And I'd be like, you're just too much. Like I loved them. But yeah, for my favorite fieldwork activity, obviously we went to Rome a lot, which is amazing. Rome was amazing. But for something a little different from that, there was this little town near Viterbo called Soriano nel Cimino. It's about 30 minutes to the east of Viterbo. And one day our teachers, sorry, they basically said, go to this town with this poem that's written in this really specific dialect just from this town of a couple hundred or thousand people that like you don't understand, and try and like decipher it and figure it out by just talking to locals. First step was getting on this train that took us to this town, which in all my time living in Viterbo, which isn't too big, I had never seen this train before. I was like, where? Like, I've literally never seen this before. It was this beautiful little train ride on this cute little old train to this town. And then we were walking around in the town, speaking to the locals, asking if they could help us like decipher it through this dialect. And I'm in this cafe with my friends talking to the guy behind the counter. And he goes, oh, my cousin wrote that poem. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, are you serious? And he was like, no, like, or maybe it was his aunt or something. And he was like, yeah, like, she wrote the poem. Like I'll explain the whole thing to you. And he just told us this whole story about it. I just thought it was so cool because this random guy and this random poem, it all came together and it was a really cool moment.
That's great. And I think a lot of our field work is to accomplish just that. Like get you outside of your comfort zone, connecting with your peers, but also just being unafraid to practice the language and to really put yourself out there. And it's a skill, and those field works are really there to challenge our students to do that within a supportive network. But what a great experience. I feel like those create some really wonderful lasting memories. So thank you for sharing that. Hannah, what about you? What's a field work you remember?
So, Zibby knows exactly what I'm about to talk about because we did it together. And so the first day, I kid you not, we flew into Paris. We like met our host families, whatever. We slept for maybe like 8 hours, still crazy jet lagged. We show up to school and then they're like, okay, guys, we're going to take your phones find a partner, and you're going to go out into the city. And it was like this thing that I think a lot of maybe the other cities did too. And it's something that you hear a lot before. And so it's like the most generic fieldwork to pick. But Zibby and I were partners, and it was the first time that we ever spoke to each other. We became best friends out of it. And let me just tell you, it was the funniest experience of my life, because here we are, between the two of us, like, we barely spoke any French. Like, maybe like bonjour, that was it. And then we had these maps. And I think the bigger problem was how we didn't know how to read maps, right? Because we normally just have our phones with us. And then we're just going around. We're so lost that at some point, Chris, who's Madame Kadir's husband, and who we didn't know either, he comes up to us wearing his SYA hat, and he starts speaking to us in English, and we're like, who are you? He works for the school. We had no idea who he was if it wasn't for the hat. He's like, guys, you look lost. And I'm like, we're so lost right now. And to be like, we were looking for the opera, which it turns out it was right behind us. Like, we had no idea where we were. And so, like, yes, we were not at all successful in finding all the things that we needed to find. I think we like made stuff up. We were like, oh yeah, we found this. We didn't find it. We like found other people. We like kind of like we borrowed each other's answers. It was all legal. Like, it didn't really count for anything. And then, but I think like the best part about it was that Zibby and I were just wandering around a city for 5 hours. We were so jet lagged and we had nothing to do but talk. And it was just really nice to find like that one person. And you're like living in this random house that you like don't know anything about. And it's like you're with a group of 60 strangers, and it's kind of like hard to integrate yourself within that group. But Zibby and I like found each other, and we had nothing to do but talk for 6 hours. And we got so close out of it. And that bond just like stayed with us, like literally like until today. And it's just like, it was amazing. I laugh about it every time I think about it.
Oh my gosh. And after that long plane ride, and you're just getting acquainted, knowing where you are. And then of course now you hear the opera and you're like, I know exactly where it is. But that first experience, just again, stepping outside your comfort zone and exploring the city, kind of uncharted territory as well. So definitely a memorable one that all of our campuses do a version of. So thank you for speaking about that one. So also in the video, we mentioned our final projects, our capstone projects. So Lila, what did you study in your final capstone project?
So in Spain, we were told that we needed to answer a large question. And so I basically made my question, how can Aragonés, the dialect of Aragon, where Zaragoza is located, how that can become more spoken in Zaragoza. And so what I did is I interviewed many different professionals, experts on the language itself. Some of them were presidents of certain organizations. One of them was like the son of the president of the entire language association, which I thought was quite interesting. Two of them wrote a book, and so I really got to learn how to write emails in Spanish, which I thought was quite interesting. You don't normally learn that in school in the U.S., and it's become quite helpful now. And then I also just got to present at the end, and I made a booklet that basically explained my whole takeaway from the process.
Very cool. And Zibby, how about you? What was your capstone on?
So I did something sort of similar along the lines of like, I decided to look into the traditional culture behind being Breton, which is like a specific type of Celtic origin specific to the region that we were in France. And so I was curious, they have a specific dialect and dance. And so for prefacing this, I don't dance. Like, I really don't dance. I'm a skier and I ride horses. Like, I could not have any less coordination with just about anything. But I decided to take traditional dance classes. And so I took dance classes once a week at 8 p.m. on a Thursday in the middle of like nowhere. It was this tiny, dark, abandoned looking building. And I walked up for the first time with my host mom because she didn't want me to go alone because she was worried I was going to get like, I don't even know, jumped. But she was so amazing. And like we walked in together, and it was where I found out that she had met her husband there. My host parents had met at this specific place and in this room that I was about to take dance classes in. And I think everyone there must have been over the age of like 60. And they were all so confused when I walked in. They were like, what is a 17-year-old American doing here? But it was just an incredible experience because they helped me out so much. And I ended up doing multiple interviews with everyone there that ended up with like hours of footage. And at the end, it ended in me teaching some of my classmates the traditional dance. So it was just a lot of fun and such a unique experience.
Wow. I can picture it. You painted a very good picture there. And of course it's the building that your host parents met in. That's so funny. All right. So I know this question came in the chat as well. So Mitchell, I'm gonna turn over to you for walking us through a typical day at SYA Spain. And Lila, you can also jump in afterwards. And if you could talk about also what lunch looked like each day, that'd be great.
So for me, I would wake up at 8 every day. I would eat breakfast at home, and then I would walk right outside. My tram stop was right outside of my house, and I took the tram to school every day. We would start classes at 8:45. Sometimes we had a free period in the morning, so we could sleep in. But in general, we would just go at 8:45, and then it goes around 2 o'clock. We would have lunch at the nearby school, Compañía de María, where we ate with each other, and we just ate the local school food there. Then we'd go back to class, and then afterwards, maybe I would go out, hang out with my friends in a cafe, or maybe or go to my extracurriculars, and yeah.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about how you learned about your extracurriculars and how you found where they were in the city?
Okay, so I actually got lucky because my host mom's boyfriend worked at the music school, so I actually got connected with the orchestra there, and then one of my orchestra teachers knew the local conservatory there, and that's how I really found my spot at the conservatory. And I also did a cooking class sometimes, which I found through the extracurriculars coordinator at SYA, so really easy finding my extracurriculars there.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. So all of our campuses, again, have our extracurricular coordinator who during orientation will give our students a bunch of options for things to try. And then, of course, host families often connect our students to either existing or new organizations that we look into and then approve. So that's an awesome host family connection. I'm glad you found it. And then our extracurricular coordinator will also help with that for our students. So a typical day at SYA Italy, Jack, if you could add anything that was special for Italy or
Sure. I
yeah.
mean, okay, so a typical day, I lived like basically Viterbo is this walled city. I'd say about half of the city is within, like the city limits is like within the walls, and then the other half is right outside. I was in a perfect location because I was like right outside of the walls, and our school was like in the very, very middle of the city. So I was about like a 10-minute walk from my school. So I would wake up, have a cappuccino with my host family in the morning. I would walk to school. I had my classes, they were usually somewhere between 8 and 3, and they would be like spread out though. So I would have different breaks to go sit in a cafe with my friends and do some work and get a coffee or whatever. For lunch, normally I would go out with my friends. There is an offer. You can go to the local university and get lunch there. And a lot of people did that. But I always just wanted to try like some new food at some new restaurant. And of course, I started to have my favorites that I would go to with my friends all the time. And then after school, if it was a Tuesday or a Thursday, I would go to my tennis place that I played tennis at. It was about half American students and half Italian kids and this one Italian adult. And we all played tennis together, and it was really fun. And it was really cool for me because I got to like learn all of the different like tennis specific words, I guess, like in Italian, which I really liked. And then I'd say a typical weekend day, I would wake up, I sleep in on the weekends, and I would wake up maybe at like 12 on a Saturday, and then I would have lunch with my host family, hang out with them for a bit, maybe do some work, hang out with some local Italian friends that I had. And then I usually go out with my friends at night, or sometimes we would do like a friends dinner, like at someone's house and like cook together. And it was really fun. So yeah, that's like a typical day.
Great. Thank you. Zivi, anything to add for your day at SYA France?
I think we might have a little bit of a different schedule. We had class from 9 till like 4:30 every day, and we'd have a nice hour-long lunch break where we'd go to the local high school. So that's, I think, similar to what others do. But I had one of the longer commutes in SYA France. I had to get driven to my metro stop because I was out in the country, and then I took the metro to the end of the line, and then I was at the end of the line, took it to the middle of the city and then switched lines to get to school. But it only ended up being about half an hour. And I think even with a long commute, it was honestly one of my favorite parts of the day because you just get into such a good mindset and you feel so independent. And it's a really quick way to gain independence. What else? Oh, the French have like a typical recess at like 10:30ish in the morning to have like a snack for about 15 minutes. So that was always fun. We'd all go down to the common room and it's just a fun break in the day. But
Great. Yeah, and you covered a different kind of a commute, which our students have. So all of our families are picked because of their proximity to the city, a doable commute for all of our students. And our host family will help our students the first couple weeks feel comfortable with their commute. Often our SYA students will commute together because they'll live close to other SYA students. But it does run the gamut because we do try to place our students with the best personality fit for the host family. So our students kind of have an array of commutes, but I think the ones who do live maybe a couple more minutes out enjoy the process and enjoy getting to know the city that way too. So definitely you can definitely see the positives of that as well. All right, so we are going to move on to our final question for Hannah. Until then, we'll get to our pre-submitted questions. But what kind of in the end made you apply to SYA? I think a lot of students may be watching this thinking, should I do it? Should I not do it? So what for you was kind of that thing that made you want to apply?
So I found out about SYA, I think it was like my freshman year was during COVID, and in the nicest way possible. It was horrible. I hated it, every second of it. Like Zoom school was not for me. And so one day I was bored and I was just like looking on my school's website and I just saw SYA and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. Like going to France, like why not, right? But I just did not think that it was possible because I was like, no way my parents would go for it. I was like, I don't even know if I want to do this. I was like, I have to go to school. Like I can't spend like a year or a semester of my life like just gallivanting around France. Like that's not possible. And then I think like the more I thought about it, I was like, maybe this is possible. And so I like reached out to people and I went to these info sessions. I reached out to a girl in my school who did it. I talked to my teachers, my advisors, and my parents, and I really, really thought about it. Because it was really important to me that I didn't miss out on things, but it was also really important to me that like this was something that I wanted to do. And so I like figured out a way to do it. And I think we found out that like just like with my schedule and my interests, the year long wasn't going to work with what I wanted to accomplish in high school, but I still didn't give up on it. And I was like, no, mom, like, what about the semester? Like, why not just go for like 4 months, you know? And so I think how I knew I really wanted to apply to SYA was just like the more that I researched it, the more I wanted to do it. And I genuinely, this is the most cliche thing that you'll ever hear, but if you're the type of person that isn't like, you keep researching it and the only thing that's kind of scaring you about it is kind of the idea of like, okay, like I'm going to this weird country with people who I don't know and living with people I don't know. Yeah, that's going to scare you even if you really want to do it. But I do think even when I told my friends that I was going to go to France, they were like, oh, that's really cool. But immediately they were like, you know, like, I wouldn't really want to do it. Like, that's really cool for you, but like, I would be kind of scared, like, everything that I'm missing out on at home, blah, 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 blah. And so they kind of knew immediately, like, well, that's a big step, something that I don't want to do. And so if you're still in this process and you're like, no, I really want to do this, I genuinely do think it's like great. Like, just apply. You never know. I do not regret it for a single second. Even when I was like there and I was homesick and it was like Thanksgiving and I was like, please, I just want to go home for like one day. I just did not regret it. And I think it's really fun.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm so grateful that you say that it still can be intimidating and scary to take the risk, even if you do want to do it and even if you're ready. So it is a challenge. We are asking our students to take a leap, and we see from our alumni that it can be the best decision you could ever make. So thank you so much for speaking about that process. We do have a pre-submitted question about what you can do to prepare, and I don't know if this is about like packing, but I do get the question a lot about the language component because we have students coming in from level 2 and above. Lila, what would you say you did to prepare that really helped you, or what would you tell the students who want to apply that wonder what they can do to prepare?
Yeah, so over the summer, they normally will send out like a little list of either podcasts, maybe things you can read, or TV shows that you can watch, at least for Spanish. They will help you improve your Spanish and also get used to listening to it. I really like to listen to podcasts. If you're interested in going to SYA Spain, I recommend the Wild Project on Spotify. It's really good. And also reading, I find that if you find a book in English that's relatively at your level and then you go find the translated version, I really like doing that. And it's a really good way to prepare your mind for just constantly reading and listening to Spanish, because it can, even after doing that all summer, it can still be a bit of a jump. But that's what it's meant to be. So
it's great answer and good recommendations. Very practical too. We also had a question about were you able to persevere through the challenges of not being fluent? Were there times you messed up? How did you persevere? And any one of you can jump in if you want to on this. What I'll say from speaking to our alumni and going to our campuses is that, of course, you will mess up with the language. I know I did plenty of times when I studied in Spain as well. And that's another great reason that we have host families and local connections, so that the stakes are a little bit lower and you will feel a little bit more comfortable taking those chances in the language. But of course, our students are here to learn through immersion, and we expect them to make mistakes. Our teachers are fully prepared for that and want to support you through it. So that's definitely a component, but also a huge part of learning a language. So we encourage you even to think through those moments of potentially making a mistake, but know that you'll probably be laughing on the other side and sharing your stories with your SYA friends as well. Zibby, do you want to add in on that?
I just have to say, you mentioned host families, and I cannot stress exactly how much a host family is to learning the language. Like, my host mom didn't speak any English at all, and when I arrived, let's just say my French was subpar. But the amount of patience that they have for us is just incredible, because they've already committed to allowing an American into their home. So they're really just ready to help you learn. And my host mom used to be a primary school teacher before she retired, and it would just turn into class. Like, she would just sit there waiting for me to get through a sentence with incredible patience. She'd be trying to help me, guessing the words. And there's just no element of embarrassment to it, because they know you're learning, you know you're learning. And at the end of the day, you see so much progress that doesn't matter if you're embarrassed.
Awesome. Jack, I'm going to turn over to you. We did have a question in the chat about the speakers and if they spoke Italian. Do you want to, if you could just answer that one real quick before we go to your next one?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I was talking about for the Global Perspective class, when they brought in speakers. And we also had on other fieldwork days, we would go and listen to speakers. And basically what they always did is that, look, a lot of people in Viterbo did not speak a word of English, but they would come in, they would give their speech. Most of them would be totally in Italian, or they would try and throw in some English words there. And then basically the professor would stand next to him, and after he would say a couple sentences or explain one thing, he would look at us and he would ask, and he'd be like, did you guys understand that? And if we didn't understand, he would explain to us in English. He would just say exactly what he had said and basically do a translation for us. And also, while they were talking, if he realized something was probably a little complicated, he started to write it out on the whiteboard behind him or something like that. So it was kind of the perfect mix of it feels authentic because you're being taught in the proper language, but you also are actually understanding what's going on because it's being said in the right language. And also to add on about, oh my God, wait, I just forgot about what Zibby was talking about.
The language, making mistakes in the language, living with your host family.
Yeah. So I just think it's bound to happen, but it's part of the experience, and it only improves it. It makes it better, at least for Italy specific people, because I know France and Spain, there's the language requirement. And for Italy, I had never learned any Italian before. I had actually done a little French and a little Spanish, but never any Italian. I got to Italy, did not speak any Italian. My host family spoke barely any Italian. And it's kind of just this cool phenomenon that happens that you can't really explain until you've gone through it. But with time, you just start learning more and more. And eventually you'll find yourself sitting there at dinner with your host family, speaking fully in Italian about politics, something that is not base level Italian. And then I would come out of dinner, I'd be like, wow, did I actually just talk about politics with my host family fully in Italian and actually understand what was going on? So it somehow, it just happens. And I think for a lot of people, especially people who are looking into this kind of thing, it probably comes naturally.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Even in Italy, where most of our students have never taken Italian before, so that's a little bit of a difference between Spain and France. The rate at which you're learning a language is really hard to describe. It's hard to describe to someone who's maybe only taken a language in a classroom that no, in a few weeks, you're going to have the same amount of hours that you've had in a year of learning a language in school, and you're going to be absorbing it all day long and feeling really comfortable. And so many components that lead to a really incredible language learning environment and a learning environment in general. So I think it's a hard thing to describe, but you did a great job with that. Jack, I am turning to you for one more question about convincing a parent. So I know we have some parents on this call who are curious, is this a program I should allow my child to do? What worked for you in terms of speaking about SIA to your parents?
Okay, yeah. So I just have to start out and say it. I know for the parents on here, you don't know me. I'm just some random kid. But look, I'm here and only for the better after doing this whole experience. I really think that this is truly a once in a lifetime experience. It's different from doing a study abroad in college, so that argument doesn't really work because it's truly different. You're living with a host family. You're living your real life as if you were in Italy. It's something, or France or Spain. It's something completely different than living in America, and it truly made me grow as a person, and I learned about myself and I learned about other cultures and just everything in it. It's an amazing experience that I don't think comes around so often. And if you're able to do it, you really should. And the truth is that when I was there, I always felt so cared for and safe. And I felt like I had people to fall back on if I needed it. And it was really so amazing. So if your kids want to do this, you should support them. It's a really once in a lifetime amazing experience.
Awesome. I really hope the parents appreciate that. And I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you, Jack. Hannah, can you tell us a little bit about something maybe that you learned from your study abroad experience, and then also advice that you'd pass along to a prospective student?
Yeah, so one thing that I talked about Zibby and I just kind of going out and being completely lost in this brand new city. And that's something I think I wrote about it for an essay or for an article that I wrote after I came home. But even before I left for France, I was I've always been a confident kid. I'm I have a lot of friends, I'm social, whatever. But I would be nervous to I didn't want to call. If I had to call a pizza shop and order a pizza, I was no, I really don't want to do this. I don't know why. I just didn't. I had a few things that I was I just was kind of nervous. I was nervous going into a doctor's office all alone. I was Mom, do you want to come with me? Let's go. Let's make this a mother-daughter bonding. And then it's you go to France, right? And obviously you're independent because you're not living by yourself, but a lot more than I was used to. But I think the thing that was most changed a lot for me was that not only did I have to do things all by myself, but I had to do things all by myself in France. So I was no longer stressing about having to do things all by myself, but I was always stressed whenever I had to call someone, I was oh my god, I have to speak in French, I'm not going to be able to do this, oh my god. And then you get over that because if I have to go to a doctor's office, I have to go. If I have to go, if I have to order food, I have to order food. It is what it is. And so you come home and eventually you kind of become comfortable with that. I would say, at least for me, because I was only there for the semester, it's definitely always even in December, it's always a little bit on my mind, how do I frame this? I definitely did get a lot more comfortable with it. But then it's you go home and I go into a doctor's office and my parents are oh, are you good to go? I was what do you mean am I good to go? Yeah, I don't have any French to rehearse. Yeah, let's go. It's if I have to go on an interview with college, I'm oh my god, I can speak in English. This is amazing. And so I think for me, it was just really a confidence. I didn't really I never thought that I was shy in confidence, but it just made me so much more comfortable that I was confident in my abilities to do basically anything. And I also think just the other part of that question was just advice before you go. I would say my biggest piece of advice is there are going to be really high highs and really low lows. For example, this week is Thanksgiving. I remember Thanksgiving, we had the most epic Friendsgiving of all time. And then it was Thursday and my entire family was together in the US. And I was oh, this kind of sucks. I'm going to school on Thanksgiving and my entire family's together without me. So there are you'll go through that. And I don't think anybody can ever tell you oh, you're going to have every single day of your year abroad will be absolutely amazing. It won't. At some point, it is just life. I would say just let yourself live, which seems kind of like basic and intuitive. But if you really want after school, if you really want to go and get like a pound of chocolate, go out and get a pound of chocolate. Like, why not? And if it's like, and if you've been having like a really rough day and your host parents are like, oh, like, do you want to watch a movie? And it's just like the last thing you want to do. Maybe this isn't the best advice, but like let yourself go and just be like, no, like I don't, like, I'm sorry, I really want to go to sleep, and go to sleep. Like let yourself, like put yourself out there and go for new risks, but also like recognize that you are like 16, 17 living abroad, and let yourself relax and let yourself like give yourself a break every once in a while, because you will need it and you do deserve it.
It's such great advice, and it's such a testament to living in a new place and feeling comfortable living in a new place and having to establish a routine that works for you and that feels both challenging but also comfortable at the same time. So I think finding that balance, it's so much more than just being somewhere for a week or two. It's your life, and you have to establish those boundaries. And I think doing that all in a new language is a whole nother thing that we're so proud of our students for, but also really impressed by that ability to adapt. And it only makes you better for life beyond SYA and college and whatever it may be, to adapt to a new situation and establish your routines and boundaries there. So speaking of the travel and adaptation, Zibby, could you talk a little bit about a student asked about breaks in the schedule, and where do you go and how do you figure that out?
So France at least functions on a different system from the US, because obviously they have different holidays. So we had a break every 6 weeks because their terms are like 6 weeks, and then they have a 2-week break, and they go further into the summer than the US system does. But for us, we had a break in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. And the first week of each of those breaks was spent on a school trip with the school, which was talked about, I think, in the presentation and a little bit after that. But we went to Montpellier, Marseille, and Paris with the school, and you kind of switch it up into groups. So the way that we did it is you get split in half at the beginning, and then you get flipped for the other end of the year. So I went to Montpellier first and Marseille last, and Hannah went to Marseille, and her group would have gone to Montpellier in the spring, and then the whole school went to Paris. So that's just such a cool bonding experience, because you still have some academic structure, often to do with your field work class, and they'll send you out on like little missions, but it's more getting to know the city and getting to know the culture and exploring, rather than like a typical classroom vibe. But we also have the opportunity after that to go on independent travel trips, which are not as scary as they might sound. I know personally I was like, this is crazy that they just like let kids travel by themselves, but it is more thought out. For all the parents on this call, like, you have to submit an itinerary, you have to provide the hotel number. It's all very pre-thought out, pre-planned, prepaid for. There's no room for large error. And if something goes wrong, like I know a few students in my class missed a train, like SYA is here to help you. You can call your teachers. You're not like completely stranded in a foreign city. But independent travel is so amazing because we just got to visit such incredible places. Like I went all over France, and both with my friends and then also with your host family. They'll often take that second week to travel with you, take you to their little places where they like to go. I know I went to Quiberon, which is a little town on the coast of France, and it's where my host family gathers, and it's just such a bonding experience to be alone with them, completely removed from the SYA experience. But there's just so much opportunity with travel. I mean, rarely do you stay stationary. Like even for field work, on our Thursday field work days, we were driving to different little cities nearby. Like we went to a film festival an hour and a half away. We went to Normandy as France. So yeah, you really get to experience, I think, your whole host country.
Yeah, that's so great. And I think some students also ask about winter break. If you're here for the year, most of our students do stay on our campuses, though some ask to get approval to go home, but we do encourage students to stay for the whole time that they're with us. It can be a little bit challenging to go home and speak English and see people and then come back. So we do encourage students to commit to the whole time that they are with us. Jack, do you want to add something? And then I'll get to our final question for Lila.
Yeah, just something really quick. The Italy, I guess it's a little different. We didn't have the 6-week thing because we kind of just had like classes flowing. And instead, they would assign different weekends or like long weekends where we would be allowed to do independent travel with our friends. And I spent a weekend in Rome, in Venice, in Genova and Milan, in Arezzo, which is this like mountainous countryside, which again is another place I don't think a lot of people have vacationed to, at least from America. And it's truly independent travel, and also travel with the school it's just such a eye-opening, cool experience and a way to learn how to travel in a new way, which I thought, especially on the trips with school, was a really cool thing. I think they taught us how to travel in a way that was just so cool to be able, I mean, cool does not summarize it. It's not the right word. I just can't think of the right word, but the way that they would teach us to interact with the locals and learn about the culture and learn about the history, but in a fun way that didn't feel like you were being forced to, was just so cool. So I can't, it was amazing.
Awesome. All right. Final question goes to Lila about your language level. So you can talk here about your language level coming in, or maybe even your classmates coming in, and how did that work? Were you speaking with people that were of your level? Were you in those classes or higher levels? Can you just talk a little bit about the language coming in and then at school?
Yeah, so when I came in, I thought I had good Spanish, but clearly I did not. But I think that's all about, like, that's all what SYA is about. You know, you come in and you don't have to have that high of a language level to even be successful. And so I actually found that talking with other students that had a higher language level as I came in at the second semester, so kids had already been there for an entire semester before me, so their Spanish was already much better. And so I found talking with them was a great way to improve, and you are totally able to talk with people who are a higher level, and then you also get to help your other peers that might be at a lower level. And I think that's really nice, because I think the best way to learn something is almost when you're teaching it to someone else. So you kind of get to like pick up their mannerisms. You know, everyone has their own favorite filler words, so I picked up a couple that my friends like to use. But I think overall you just get better. I mean, I trusted the process. I knew that it might be difficult, you know, to improve, but I just knew that it was going to happen. And if you let that happen, I think that's the key.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for all of your time. I do want to plug our social medias. Students, if you want to put your own email or social media in the comments, you're welcome to, for students who may have questions. But our school year abroad accounts are really incredible. We have campus reporters on every single location who are creating content for us every week. So that's on our Instagram and TikTok as well. So that can be a really great opportunity to see kind of a day in the life at SYA from our current students. And if I didn't get to your question, you can email me. My email is mbland@sya.org. So please do reach out. I know we had some awesome questions coming in. And so we got to as many as we could, but I would love to hear from you if we didn't get to your question. And just a huge thank you to Jack, Zibby, Mitchell, Lila, and Hannah for taking the time to give back to SYA and share about your experiences. I learned so much from these calls, and I know our families watching did too. So we really appreciate your time tonight and sharing all of your amazing stories. So thank you all so much. Thank you to those who have joined us tonight, and we hope to hear from you and see the application